Okay, check it out. We're going to look at some more chord tone reflections here. We're going to be doing an analysis on just a minor triad. So we'll use C minor, and we're gonna look at the three variants. Okay, so like natural. So you've got those, the second inversion, first inversion, just the natural root minor 3 5. We're going to pull the tone reflections out of those and see what we get, and look at a couple ways we might use it. Okay, so let's pull apart the first one. So the way that I'm gonna find the reflection here is basically like this. I'm always going to use like the bass note of the voicing that I'm using, and I'm gonna raise it an octave and then reflect the chord tones. You'll see. So here's our natural C minor, C, E flat, G. Well, I'm going to go up to C here, and instead of going up a minor third, we're going to go down a minor third, right? And then we're gonna go down a perfect fifth, right? So that's how the reflection works. We instead of we go up a minor third in the natural. Well, we're gonna go down a minor third. We go up a perfect fifth. We go down a perfect fifth. So we end up with verses and you can see that is a F major triad. That's the reflected chord of that voicing. Let's look at the first inversion. So we got a minor 3, a 5, a root. So let's raise that third by an octave so we can reflect those other tones here. So the pattern for this, we got up a major third, and then from that major third we go up a perfect fourth. So we're gonna just reverse that. We're gonna go down a major third, and then from there down a perfect fourth. We're talking interval distances here, right? And you can see that right there is a B major triad. So that's a reflection of this first inversion. Just like the F major was a reflection of that natural triad voicing. Let's look at the second inversion. So here you got the 5, the root, the minor third, right? The G, the C, the E flat. So let's take that bass note, let's raise it an octave, and let's reverse the order, right? We're going to go down a perfect fourth and then down a minor third, right? Up a perfect fourth, up a minor third, down a perfect fourth, down a minor third. And there we have another major triad over the G. So you notice that each of those voicings for that triad, really basic first and second inversions and the natural voicing of that minor triad yield three distinct major chords. All right, the first one gave us the F major, right? The second gave us the B, and the third gave us that G. So we have, you could look at it as this C minor triad can be reflected by any one of three major triads. So and you can hear how they react to each other. This is really important. You know, it's always the context of the chords, you know, that are important. Not as much the chords themselves. You know, people talk about you know, the dominant chord being like a very unstable chord, and yes, you know, by itself, yeah, we can make these arguments, but you know, it's when we put things side by side that they have context, and they, you know, what might sound like totally restful in one context can sound completely dissonant in another. You know, and in any event, the whole purpose of this, you know, kind of an analysis is to try to find, you know, how we can use, you know, creative ways that we can find to introduce like movement. Okay, so you might be thinking, okay, well, what do we do with this, right? How do we leverage this? And so I want to show you some obvious ones. I just played through. Let's say we have like two, you know, we're in C minor, but we're stuck there, let's say for 2 bars. You know, these reflections create an opportunity for us that may be a little less predictable than our typical movements. Okay, so for example, we might use that, you know, one of these reflections as an alternative to, let's say, a more typical, for example, let's say we're playing and that we've landed on the one chord and we're there for 2 bars, and you know, we decide to like maybe play like a, you know, one of the other chords in that one of the other scale chords in that key. So I might go up to, I might play that, which is perfectly, it's perfectly diatonic for one. 2, it's kind of a predictable movement. You know, we're just kind of like borrowing a neighboring chord from the scale of chords. You know, the diatonic scale of chords we get. You know, you might play a, you know, if this is like kind of like the Aeolian. You know, that's a very like diatonic way of moving in and out, and that's fine. That's totally fine. What I'm proposing with these reflections is an alternate, maybe less conventional approach. And so when we look at the reflections we got from this minor, you know, we noticed there was a major in the 5th position. And that's not that unusual sounding. It has this 5/1 kind of sound. It sounds a lot like a, a harmonic minor, like a tonal move. The F major, is a little bit, maybe a little more outside sounding, maybe a little more unusual. If we're forgive me, ignore that last idea. There's the 4 has a bit of a more unusual departure. Typically in a diatonic sense, you might go from that C minor and that would work too. To make that major is interesting because it introduces that, this major 6 against that minor. So we might borrow some tones from the reflections. This other triad, this one on the B major triad, which lives a half step behind the root of that C, it, to me, has the most character, or the most unpredictable sounding departure from that. You get this like flat 5, you get this major 7. We still keep this minor 3rd, but that sound, it's an interesting movement. And again, we might just kind of keep some of the, might just borrow some of the notes, the important notes. Here you get that flat 5 and that major 7, like they lead nicely into the root and the 5. It's quite there's so many ways to use these things. You can borrow bits and pieces from them. You can play the reflected tones like, as their own sort of like passing chord, if you will. So many ways to use this. I think what's interesting too about this, and when we look, I did a previous video where we looked at the major triads to see what kind of reflections we get. And what's interesting in this case is that each of the inversions of this minor triad yield a major reflection. And when we did the same thing with the major triad, we found 3 distinct minor triad reflections. Very interesting. So I think there's like something to be uncovered here that could be very interesting. A lot of different applications we could use. But for now, without going into like a deep rabbit hole, I wanted to share that with you guys. Stay cool.